Let's now focus on the state of security or lack of it thereof in the country, focusing on what has been happening in Mandera, Garissa. And 2 police officers have been killed and 2 others injured after their vehicle ran over an improvised explosive device in Melele area of Garissa County. The attack comes just a day after 3 police officers were killed and 3 others were injured in a similar manner in Kulan area of the same county. It also comes after 5 police officers were also killed in Mandera after their vehicle ran over an improvised explosive device. Okay, so this is a story that is causing a lot of security experts in the country lots of sleepless nights. The lack of security in Mandera and Garissa. This is not the first time we're witnessing this. And the number of times actually this is happening is really worrying. And I would like us to listen a little bit to what was said yesterday after the attack that happened yesterday by, I believe, the county commissioner on the number of attacks and really Al-Shabaab insurgents setting up IEDs along the roads that are used by security officers there. Do we have that? Okay, let's now speak to Richard Kaketo. He's a lecturer, Center for Social Justice and Ethics, basically focusing on injustice and peace. Thank you so much for joining us on News Center this morning. What are your thoughts about what's happening in Garissa, Mandera?
My thoughts are it is a replay of what I would call a backlash. When we get the state moving into Somalia and leaving Kenya sort of not well protected. And the fact that some of the returnees of the Al-Shabaab have not been well used to help give the intelligence that is necessary to give information to the state. That's what I would say would be.
When you say they're not well used, what exactly does that mean?
We had a conference it's ongoing at Tangaza University College right now.
Okay.
And we had a sharing from one of the commissioners of NCIC. And they've been doing quite a lot of work with Al-Shabaab returnees. But the approach of the state towards working with returnees is such that you clamp down and eliminate them. And when people work with them, they are considered party to the terror. Things like amnesty. We need to be offering amnesty to returnees.
That was offered, right?
So, but there is some mistrust there that is going on. Because what is happening is that the young men choose who they would like to work with, and the state is being coerced to run by the rules of amnesty. Yeah. So the challenge we are having now is intelligence needs to be gathered more from those who've been in the camps, so that when they come home, they are able to share more generously the insights to support the police in dealing with these situations. I have a feeling that the returnees can be very useful in sharing this information.
So in other words, you want them to be given the liberty to choose who they want to open up to?
Sometimes
that is not happening.
Sometimes it is part of what should be happening.
That is not happening, is it?
Yeah, I don't think it is happening as it should.
Okay, looking at the latest attacks, IEDs, what is the role of returnees in all this, if there is any?
My intention of tackling it this way is to indicate that some of these things happening are pre-planned. It is not abrupt. These networks, the way they operate. So there is a possibility that this information relating to the laying of the IEDs is already on record somewhere. And these returnees would be useful in sharing the information necessary to preempt these attacks.
So I think probably they would have given some sort of information, this is being planned here and there. There is the notion that probably Kenyan Defense Forces are in Somalia and they've managed to quash Al-Shabaab, and that is why they're now moving along the Kenyan borders, and that is why they're able to plant IEDs. Is that an argument you'd buy?
It is possible. It is possible that when you move you make life uncomfortable for the protagonists inside the state of Somalia, probably then they would move out. But there's something that we need to know. We need to treat security along with peace. Because the state, when you talk about peace, the state hears security and coercion and its use of the means of coercion. And as a result, peace has become also politicized. I'll give you an incidence. Right now in the country, the word peace itself is a politicized word. When you use peace, people hear, accept, and move on. And it is a challenge. We met the young people down in, we were with the university students from Tangaza, from Kuea, from Jomo Kenyatta, from Cooperative College. It was running a peace caravan along with the administrative police. And then we went around the city and entered Kibera. Now, when we reached Kibera, these people told us you had better be talking about free and fair elections. It's not peace. You should be talking about free and fair elections. And we had to belabor the point that, look here, even if you lost an election, whether rigged or not, yes, you have a right to respond, but the manner of response cannot be killing the other or burning their houses. And the point here is that we have generally prepared society to believe in violence as an option to deal with many situations. And I raised this with my students when the state decided to go to Somalia. We said, okay, we have just come out of a situation of 2007, 2008. We are telling people violence is bad. But we have the state saying it is okay to go and aggress.
In your opinion, how should the state have handled what was going on? Because we had cases of Al-Shabaab crossing over, getting into the country. How best would the state have handled it?
You remember that the trigger point for the going of the state was the kidnap of a German lady. I think the German or French, I don't remember very well there. And yet, it is also true that at that same time, resources from pirating and from Somalia were being laundered, so to say, in this country, as in people trying to clean the money from within. So it must have been possible that negotiations to get that lady back using the financial and economic networks in the country were possible. I don't consider myself a pacifist, but I'm increasingly undermining the argument of a just war. It is losing its value. I mean, justifying aggression is becoming a problem at the moment.
Is that what's playing out now in Mandera and Garissa? Is this the aftermath? Are these the consequences?
That's what is happening, precisely. We chose to aggress, okay, allegedly preempting attacks on our country. The result is we now have these smaller attacks that are now growing in volumes. And one of the principles of just war is that you must weigh the proportions of, if I choose to go, is the damage to be caused by my going proportionate to the damage that would be caused if I didn't go?
Okay, we're already there. Yeah. So we need to have a conversation about what then needs to be done. But before we do that, let's listen into what the county commissioner had to say yesterday.
They killed our chief of the location called Omar Jilao in Mandera County. Later, they planted an IED in Elwak between Bohol 11 and Doba City, where we lost a civilian surveyor and another one was injured. A few days later, again in Liboy, they planted an IED and 4 civilians were lost.
That is the county commissioner just enumerating the attacks, the number of attacks they've had on the ground. And like I mentioned, there is this notion that probably because KDF is in Somalia and now you have Al-Shabaab coming to the border, and that bothers me a little bit. Because if you can have Al-Shabaab coming to the border of the country, then that means by all means they can actually get into the country. So what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong?
Yeah. The basic function of the military is to protect the borders.
The borders.
Okay, it's protect the borders. If you prioritize moving inside, of course, they say, okay, now tackle them at their route so that they may not come. If you move inside Somalia and you leave the borders unprotected, you're making a big mistake. That's part of it. But for me, I usually would like that we deal with the bottom-up approach to this situation. The administration police, and my heart goes out to the deaths, of these officers, has been doing a great job in community policing. But I'm not sure people have understood it well. There is a way in which the community can be part of the generation of the intelligence necessary.
Yeah, because if people can be planting IEDs, there should be someone who
Someone
sees
is
something.
saying.
Someone must see
Yes,
something.
someone is saying. Now, why it is that people are not sharing that information
Tell me.
is a real problem. And I don't have a real answer. Because we had an experience in northern Uganda, for instance. Konyi, this rebel, was killing his own brothers and sisters. But politically, people would rather say, let him do whatever he wants, he remains our son. Okay? Now, Konyi has left the country. The country is relatively stable, but we exported Konyi to wherever. Now, my challenge is, what has to be done to increase the cooperation of civilians in the security operation? What do the security operatives have to do to win over the civil populace?
What do they have to do?
Exactly. They need to learn how to be friendly, And what do I mean?
Yeah.
Let me tell you one thing. When the police officers are being trained,
Yeah.
it would seem that the curriculum is yet to be adjusted to include relations with civilians. And when you have a situation where civilians fear the police, when civilians fear the military, you will not get the information. So that's what I would say, that some investment has to be done in the software. We've done well in teaching them how to shoot and how to combat this stuff and how to identify the IEDs and disarm them. Maybe we need to be working on how to
Maybe we
work
need to
with
involve
people.
the residents there a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's listen into another sentiment that was said on the governor there, Ali Roba. This is like, the seventh time actually his life has been targeted by insurgents in that region. Let's listen in a little bit. Can we listen into that? Okay, so let's look at the governor, that is Ali Roba. This is like the seventh time he's been targeted. 5 officers in his convoy died. And of course, the leaders there are raising concern about the level of security that he's being given. So even as you say, we need to work with the residents there. Don't you think then that someone like Ali Roba needs to be given more security, so that, first of all, the residents there get to feel that our leader is being protected, and then maybe we need to play a role in all this?
Yeah, and you see, you use the right term. They need to feel that our leader is being protected. I'm a security skeptic, and I use this word to indicate that security is more than the gentleman at the gate. It is more than the searches. Up to now, I've not yet gone over the fact that I have to be searched before I enter a church. All right? My thinking is completely different. It should be possible for people to be secure without ammunition. It should be possible for someone to go out there knowing that what I stand for is enough to protect me. What do I mean? For example, when the attacks that we had on the churches, you remember? We had these several attacks on the churches, and then we responded by turning some of our churches into garrisons. Okay, you enter the church, you scan, all this stuff. I have a very weird response to this. I would rather we celebrate all the deaths that are happening in the church. I belong to the Catholic faith, where we believe in saints, that people who've gone before us can be canonized and celebrated in their life after. If we consistently celebrated the deaths of the people who died due to terror, my reasoning is we would undermine the motivation of those who kill them.
I'm sure there are a lot of people who would disagree with you.
True. I know. And that's why I said I have a very weird disposition to this, because the response of violence with violence serves to justify it. The IEDs, the arms, all these anti-missile tanks are being produced to do one thing, to kill human beings. So we need a sort of global rebellion against violence. We must cease even to produce arms. That is my reasoning. So that they can neither go to the states nor to the terrorists. And the starting point is disarm people and return arms to the state.
Apart from involving the local residents, what else do you think needs to be done to address what's happening in that region?
Intelligence gathering.
I'm sure that is already there.
We just have to up the game in intelligence gathering. And as you've indicated, community policing does the job. I wouldn't recommend any aggression at the moment. I think the intelligence gathered, if it is properly analyzed, we know who to talk to and we know who to penetrate for purposes of calling off these attacks. Because the motivations of these attacks are not yet known. From all the discussions that are going on, at the moment we don't know what is motivating these attacks. What message are they sending? Has anyone owned the attacks? Not yet. Yeah, so that's quite a bit of a challenge there.
Okay, listen, before I let you go, as we head towards the general election, August 8th general election, in terms of peace and ensuring that it's a peaceful process, and of course, vis-a-vis what's happening in Garissa and Mandera, what are some of the benchmarks? What are some of the things probably that the government should be putting in place to ensure we have a safe, quote-unquote, election?
Yeah, the word is safe. I think the state needs to invest in non-violent responses to conflict.
Yeah, because I remember there's a time the ICT, Joe Musheru actually raised concern, says there is the possibility of terrorists actually probably hacking into the system, interfering with the general election.
And causing the ripple effect. At the moment, I would highly recommend that we invest in preparing people for non-violent responses to whichever way the election goes. So that people know that, yes, assuming I lost an election, whether truly I've lost genuinely or I have been cheated out of the election, the response ought to be that I can choose not to buy, I can choose not to go to work, I can choose not to cooperate. You know, we have 198 methods of non-violent action. Okay, street marching and whatever are just 2 or 3 of them. So, and we've not done enough in making people think that when I am frustrated, when I'm angered, I can respond in a manner that doesn't terminate a life, that doesn't destroy property. I think that's where energy should be. But the state cannot do it alone, because when the state does it now, people will target a Jubilee message. So it is something that has to happen across the whole political board. NASA needs to be telling its people, yes, assuming we lose an election and we're not happy with it, our response can only be non-violent. It can't be a violent. And non-violence doesn't mean accept and move on. Non-violence means you fight back, but you fight back with means that are not destructive. You treat the opponent not as an enemy, but as an adversary. So that's the kind of message that needs to be going out amongst all the young people, amongst all the protagonists.
Okay.
Yeah.
Richard Kaketo, Lecturer, Center for Social Justice and Ethics. Thank you so much for joining us on News Center this morning. I'm hoping the residents there can get more involved and probably would get to a point where we end some of these